September 11, 2001, a day that changed the course of our nation and for many of us, the direction of our lives. 24 years later, the memories of that stay, and the years that followed still live with us. For this special bonus episode of the Chat 62 podcast, I wanted to take a step back. Instead of just hearing my voice, we will reflect through the words of veterans who have shared their stories with us here on Season 2. You'll hear from Paul Stringer, Henry Rodriguez, Dani Mercy, Gunny Moon, and Lyndon Walker. Their experiences, their reflections, and their voices remind us why we must never forget. Paul Stringer.
Corporal Paul Stringer, where were you on 9/11?
Yeah, so 9/11, I had just moved back to Lexington in August, a month prior, and just got married, and my wife was pregnant. And my dad's father had passed away around the same time. And as I mentioned before, they are from kind of the eastern part of, or western part of West Virginia. They're in the heart of Appalachia. So he passed away, and they had scheduled his funeral. It was on September 11th. My dad's family, my dad's parents, they grew up in a very charismatic Assemblies of God, Pentecostal, speaking in tongues, very mountain, very, very. It's a different style of Christian faith and tradition. Not bad, not worse, but just a little different. We drove in to go to the funeral, woke up that morning and, saw a plane hit the tower, and then something else happened, and sitting there in the middle of the Appalachian Mountains. And first thing I do is call my buddy who we went in the Marines with, it's like, hey, stuff's popping off. Because we had talked about this stuff for years, what's going to happen when everything's running down, where we're going to go, like what supplies are we going to get. I always tell my friends, look, I'm taking over a Walmart. That's the first thing I'm doing. Stuff goes downhill, I'm going to the nearest Walmart. And if I have to cap a couple people out to make that stuff work, I have my ammo, have my camping gear, have my bikes, food. I'm taking over a Walmart, and
it's a one-stop shop.
One-stop shop. Yeah. So we were all, geared up. Well, we go to the funeral. I was never allowed to go to church with them growing up. I always went to a Church of Christ with my aunt. And man, I think most Sunday services or whatever day of the week, I don't know if it was a work week. Yeah, work day. You can imagine how a lot of the Sunday services were after 9/11, because churches were packed for months and months and months. And months after that, and because everybody was searching and questioning. And so we got there, and we're all kind of reeling. And man, that preacher, he had done the funeral for a couple other of my relatives, and it's just a very loud, like roaring, yelling cadence that they get into, like beat red in the face. Well, you take that and September 11, I mean, the end times were now, and dude, buildings are falling in New York. Like, I don't know, it could be the end times. Of course, my wife, Amanda, she's 19 years old, super pregnant. And this family, you sit in the front row, and we're just the guy's feet from yelling in our face. And that was very, very traumatic for my wife. And I just remember thinking, like, what's going on, and so the day itself was it was mixed. We were dealing with some family stuff, but also kind of culturally, at the apex of how different things were, and compared to where we were at a couple months ago to being in California. And yeah, I just remember feeling like stunned. I remember thinking that I was glad that George Bush was in office versus Al Gore. I remember that was one of my initial thoughts, and I'm not sure why. It's like, I thought like, hey, this guy's going to be better cut out to do it. And then started thinking about what the chances of me getting, recalled were, because my EAS was on August 11th pretty much. And so I got out 1 month before. And I think if I'd have stayed in California, I would have got, stop lost and recalled just like other people did. So I remember being thankful that I was in Kentucky and not California at the time.
Henry Rodriguez.
September 11th, 2001 happens. You're out for what? A little over a year. What's going through your head as events are unraveling
Oh man, it was kind of crazy to see, 'cause you never think it's going to happen here. I thought about re-enlisting after that, just because I knew, we were going to go to war at some point. I don't know why, but, you're like, well, I think that I'm out already. I'm going to school. I have a family. Even the Marines in there have families too, but you're like, well, maybe it's not for me. Maybe I got out for a reason.
Yeah.
And there's a different path for me. There's that little inkling in the back of your head that like, well, maybe I should re-enlist.
I was about to say the same thing. It sounds good in the moment, but then you start to weigh out, oh shoot, okay, these are the factors why I can't or why I probably shouldn't.
Yeah, exactly.
And you are right. Everything does happen for a reason. You got out during that time for a reason. I mean, who knows what life would have been like now.
It'd probably be totally different.
Dani Mercy.
I normally ask the question, where were you on 9/11? And by far, you are our youngest guest.
Yes, you are.
I'm 30.
Yeah.
I'm not like ashamed of my age. I'm 30. But I remember because we watched it on the news, and my parents are gone by this point. I don't know, they were working, right? Because they worked a lot. So they were working. We were getting like jelly and stuff for our toast, and I spilled jelly because I'm like watching the news and watching this tower like get hit by a plane. I was like, what the heck is happening? I thought it was like fake. Like I thought it was like a movie or something because like I'm 7. I don't know that this is the news. My sister's like mad at me because I just spilled jelly all over the counter. And I'm like, what the heck? And then we get to school because we go out to the bus. We get to school and everybody's like sad. We're like, what the heck is happening? My mom, for the only time my whole life, I have such a vivid memory. She comes and she picks us up from school and she says, it's just a day we need to be together. And I asked her like more recently, actually, like not too long ago, I said, Mom, why did you come get us? Like, what was going through your mind? Like, she said, we didn't know because, I didn't realize the climate then because I was so young. She's like, we didn't know if there was going to be attacks other places. Like, we didn't know what was happening, but we thought like we were under attack and we needed to get our family together because we might die today. And I was like, oh shit. Like, I didn't realize all that.
Yeah, that's how scary it was. I was, where I lived, I lived in Los Angeles, not too far from downtown. What about maybe 5 miles away from downtown?
5 miles away. Yeah.
So on my way to work, I actually had the news on, watching it when I was getting dressed, and I saw the airplane. Actually, the first thing that came on the news was there's a fire. That's what they reported. Yeah. There was a fire. Then they switched over. We saw the smoke coming out of one of the towers.
They said it was a helicopter that may have hit the building. That was one of the things that came up.
And then all of a sudden you see the other plane crash and disappear. And as I was going to work, I worked probably like 15, 20 miles from downtown when I was going up to Burbank, Glendale. I was going up the freeway, and that's when they started talking about the airplane going into the Pentagon. And I'm like, oh crap. I'm like, they're going to hit downtown LA. That's the first thing that went into my head.
I can imagine. I was so young. Like, I remember the aftermath, and my dad told me, we're going to go to war for this. And I said, oh, will it be like a couple of years? And he's like, no, they'll still be like at war. By the time you're 18, they'll still be at war. And I remember in that moment, I was like, I'm never joining the military. Look at me now.
Gunny Moon.
9/11 happens, and then that job is still going, but I was out, but I was still a reserve, but I wanted to do something because I think every American at the time wanted to do something. Made some phone calls, called Marfor Res, and they linked me up with a unit within the Atlantic Fleet that I had to re-enlist. Fuck yeah. Well, ironically, at the same time, I get laid off from this fucking really good job in Texas. Yeah. So my two buddies are like, no fucking way. Like, because I was still in my probation. Well, I'm 1 year probation period. So it was within that time. And they laid off 15 of us, and I was one of them. I was like, motherfucker. I was like, I guess this is a sign. So I wound up taking orders and re-enlisting. Before I can go, they send me back to the original I&I unit that I came from. Because remember, my home of record is still in that state. So I'm like, okay, they said, hey, we need you to report in. You're going to do a full medical physical. You're going to do all this stuff. I'm like, fine. So I pop open my sea bag again, throw on my shit. I'm happy to go. It was so weird because I remember I was checking in. People were checking out. And now you have to understand reserve mentality, right? Hey, I didn't sign up for this. I did my time. I did my 6 years as a reserve. I'm fucking
I
out.
didn't sign up for this shit. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're getting out. But then they're doing a stop loss at the time. So they're like, sorry.
Hold on there.
Exactly.
Lyndon Walker.
It was a different time when we were in too because of 9/11. I was at Camp Horno doing the rifle range. I was on the 300-yard line, and we were all getting like snapping in, getting ready to like send rounds down range, and we noticed like all the workers and stuff from the firing range were all huddling around like the duty truck, and you could tell they were like talking and listening to something, and then they did like a stop. They made everybody kind of like pick up their gear and told us basically to report to our command. So we all like got our shit together, had no idea what was going on, got back on the bus, drove back to San Mateo, and got in. God, I want to say like we all went into either one of the offices, and someone had like it up on like either a computer or a TV. I can't remember how we saw it. And that's how we found out what was happening. But it was crazy, man, because it was like pretty early in the morning, and we were all like, you got at the rifle range at like 5:30. We had already been shooting for like 2.5 hours. And then they just did like stop, told us to stop training, report to your command, and everybody just scattered. That was like gnarly because you don't know what's going on. That's like the worst thing about being in the Marine Corps is like we all joined for the main reason of like being, serve our country. And until that very moment, like it was just a job. It wasn't like there was no worry of like doing anything crazy. And that immediately changed everything. That was kind of like a smack in the face. Like my mom was like freaked out. Everybody was. We, at first we weren't all like that worried that we were going to go anywhere. But it was like shortly after that like it became, you saw like 3-5 or one of those battalions leave right after. It was kind of like, wow, this could be real fast. It was crazy at that time because I remember actually Bush was the president.
Yeah, Bush was, yeah. I can remember when they're whispering in his ear when he's like reading to a bunch of kids in kindergarten. And you just see his face like, shit, he doesn't know how to react.
I don't think any of us did. It was so scary and real. And
so what was going through your head? I mean, like personally, did you think?
Yeah, I think we all kind of thought that. Because like the whole time, like we were at the 5th Marines, and like I always, the history was what was so cool about like the Marine Corps, and like I wish I could remember as much as I did then, but like, fighting 5th, they were like the badasses. So I always remember when I first checked in, I like, I was pretty up to speed on a lot of Marine Corps knowledge at that point. So checking into 1st AEB, I thought I got it. This is cool. I'm like with the construction crew, and these are like we get to watch the badasses from the sidelines. So then once we all consolidated, it got a little more scary. Like, shit, I got to go, like, not to be like we were ever less, but we were pogues, bro. Like, we were pogues. Those were the badasses when we were the pogues. And then all of a sudden, we're, like, living in the same barracks as them. And we're, like, doing their payroll and doing their training. Like, a lot of the shit they did, we did. We just had extra duties afterward. They went and worked on cami netting and cleaned their weapon. We went and did, like, reports and unit diaries and orders and stuff, like they were the badasses. So once we all kind of merged with them, it was like, wow, like anything could happen. So as soon as 9/11 happened, it was like, you kind of knew who was going to get called. It was going to be one of those guys or those battalions. And so that was a little scary because I had at that time too, like I want to say she was pregnant, or I had started, I got to start remembering when I got married because I'm divorced now to her, so I can't really remember, but I want to say we were either married or getting married right around or before 9/11 happened. So it was kind of like that was scary. I was like starting a family, and then this kind of stuff was happening where in my mind I was on the tail end of something, gonna ride it out, enjoy the rest of my enlistment. Then that happened.
Emotionally, did you feel torn between, hey, I'm starting my family, and then, and I still have my duties as a Marine?
100%, man, 100%. And like now it's crazy because like I was just thinking about this the other day, like talking to my old lady, like we didn't have choices, like when we had to leave or we had to go places, and it's like we just said bye to our ladies or significant others at the time, and we did our thing. But now it's like that would be so damn hard for me to do. Like, but bless those guys, man. Like they would be able to be ready to go within a few hours and on their way. And that was like fortunate. Other than all the training that we had to do, I remember we were hiking a lot more. We were doing a lot more PT. There was a lot more, I guess, pressure on everybody. We did a lot of like, I felt like whenever we had downtime, they would make us get our gear ready down on the basketball court, like we were going to deploy. And so we did that several times. Like had to be ready within a certain minute, show that your gear was prepped and ready, and you could get it in the,
Right.
ready. We did that a lot, but most of it was like seeing everything go wrong around us was like kind of crazy. It puts you on edge because you're like surrounded by
A lot of movement.
A lot of movement, and like a lot of things were. It was a scary time because that was what they did, the terrorist attack on during on the World Trade. That was horrible. We were in war after that, basically, and watching people get ready to go and do the shit that, like, even though we had done all this gnarly training to prepare ourselves as best as we could to be in that kind of situation, it never felt like we would ever have to do any of that. It was like kill, yeah, like my mom never liked that. Gee, they make you say kill all the time. That's so violent. Kind of what they're teaching us to do here,
The voices you just heard remind us that September 11th is not just a date in history, it's a living memory, carried by those who served and those who still serve today. On behalf of the Chat 62 podcast, we remember the lives lost that day, the heroes who ran toward danger, and the brothers and sisters we've said goodbye to since. We tell these stories because they matter, because they are a part of us. Thank you for taking this time to reflect with us. Semper Fi.